Welcome to the Cannon Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Darius, and today we are joined by Notre Dame high school basketball coach, Matt Sargeant. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
So this past season, the ongoing season right here, for the first time in Notre Dame history, Coach Sargeant led Notre Dame to the Open Division playoffs, pool play. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Obviously still ongoing in the Division I playoffs, but we'll get more into that. So today we're going to focus on kind of how we got to here today, and then we'll take a look ahead, okay?
Awesome.
So let's get some background. Where are you from?
I'm SoCal born and raised. Grew up not too far from here in the Pasadena area. Played my high school ball at Ocean View High School in Huntington Beach for legendary coach Jim Harris. I had a pretty decorated high school basketball career. First team All Orange County a couple of years. I was all state for a division, all that good stuff. So I got scholarship offers to a number of Big West schools, but my dad went to Harvard, mom went to BU. They'd kind of instilled in me the importance of not just academics, but just sort of using basketball as a way to sort of create a better life for myself. And I realized at a somewhat early age that the NBA, a goal wasn't likely. You just look at the stats for that, and I don't know about that. So I decided to go to Princeton, played there for 4 years, and after that, came back home. I worked for a startup, worked for a publicly traded company. I was successful in that, and then I just got the itch to get back into basketball and started that journey.
And initially, going back a little bit on this journey, how did you get into basketball initially?
Oh, so, man, it was one of those things where I don't have a visceral memory of this, but basically, first time I shot the ball, I made it, and I just fell in love with that feeling. That's a very, very, very simple thing, just getting in love with just putting the ball in the basket. And I was really good at putting the ball in the basket from a very, very young age. There's the funny story about this is there was a YMCA league. I grew up in La Cañada, right next to Pasadena, and there's this YMCA league, and you could start when you were 6. So I'd been like shooting hoops, in and around parks since the age of 4 or 5. At 6 was the first time I could play organized basketball. So they bring the kids into the gym and they have us do this weird little trial where you're trying to dribble through cones and you're shooting on hoops that are 7 feet tall, put on top of the baskets. And the second game I played in, I was going up against who would later become my mentor, a guy named Craig Impleman. He had a 6-year-old son. He was coaching a 6-year-old son. And I make my first 3 shots, and no one makes shots when they're 6 or 7 years old. So he ended up putting a box and 1 on me.
At 6 years old?
Yeah. And so he goes home that night to his wife. She goes, "Yeah, honey, how was the game?" "Oh, it was great. There's this kid making shots. I had to put Johnny on him and do a box and 1. She said, "You put a box and 1 on a 6-year-old?" And in that moment, it kind of hit him. The competitiveness sort of lifted. He's like, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" From that league, he was a Division I college basketball coach. He coached at UCLA. His wife was John Wooden's granddaughter, so he became John Wooden's grandson-in-law. And so he had this idea of finding the best sort of 7 to 10 players in that league, creating as a team of them at the age of 7, and we would run legit John Wooden UCLA practices, everything from imaginary shooting, the jump stops, the 3-lane fast breaks, the specific way that John Wooden did shell, all of that. 2 nights a week from 7 to 13, that was my sort of introduction into basketball. I was blessed for that. And then, I ended up playing high school basketball with his son, and I'm still get texts, and I'm still close to him to this day.
So all this leads up to your high school career, and you mentioned it before, decorated, and that's not putting it lightly. It really was All-American nominee, correct?
McDonald's All-American nominee.
McDonald's All-American nominee.
First team Jewish All-American. That's a real thing.
Oh, that's a real thing.
It's a real thing. No, I'm serious.
Joke.
It was me and Jordan Farmar were the 2 guards of the Jewish Sports Association. That's
a good backcourt. I would take that as my backcourt. So talk about that kind of success in high school.
Yeah, I loved, being in the gym and working on my game. I was obsessed with it, and so I kind of got the juice from working on my game and being able to feel poised and confident to go and play at my best. And I was lucky to play for a high school coach who challenged me defensively. I think if I hadn't played for him, I probably wouldn't have paid any attention to defense because I was so good at putting the ball in the basket. And if you don't have a coach that's going to challenge you, and you can put the ball in, like your state of mind is like, well, if I give up a bucket here, I'm just going to go score. And he really challenged me. I remember my sophomore year, I transferred there my sophomore year. So, I played at a small private school. Our freshman year, I was like 20 points per game. I just said, I need to go challenge myself. I can't do this. So I transferred to Ocean View, and it's like our third or fourth game of the year, and we're playing against Woodbridge, who had a point guard named Patrick Haddon, who ended up playing at Penn. And he was a senior, I was a sophomore. And my high school coach knew that, he knew my goals. He knew that I wanted to be a Division I player. So he had me pick him up full court. And for an entire game, Patrick Haddon just dribbled by me. And I'm looking at my coach like, can I pick him up at half? He's like, no, pick him up full court. Dribbling by me. And it was like, at that moment, I was like, okay, I need to get better. I do better. I didn't blame him for that. I wasn't upset with him. I didn't get in the car like, oh, what was coach doing when we lost that game? Because no, it's like, no, if I'm a Division I player, I got to be able to pick up another Division I player full court. So I loved being able to look at my game, analyze my game, and figure out how I could get better. That was what I enjoyed about basketball probably more than anything else, is creatively figuring out what I could do to improve. And I was maniacal about it, man. I mean, there's a saturation of trainers these days. Everyone has a trainer. I had people help me when I was younger, but by the time I got to high school, I worked myself out. And I didn't really know what I was doing, so the only way I could really know that I was doing a good job is trying to get myself as tired as possible. So I would do weird stuff. I'd bring a 10-pound medicine ball and run a suicide with it, and then put the ball down, pick up a basketball, and dribble down and try and shoot a pull-up three. And I had to make it. Or do it again, 10-pound medicine ball, running. I know if I'm getting myself tired and then doing whatever drills I'm doing, I'm probably going to be pretty good in the game. So that's how I thought about it. And playing at the high school level, especially by the time I got to be my junior year, I was averaging 20 and we were 27-4 and we're ranked 20 times. That was the first time I really experienced people kind of coming at me. Other players, fans of schools. I remember this. I haven't told this story in a long time. We were playing a league opponent, Costa Mesa High School, and my last name is Sargeant. In case you just said. And they bust a whole student section to come to our gym, about 100 kids, all dressed in Army fatigues, and they'd all made up chants, Army chants. I don't know. I'm not going to repeat it because it was not appropriate. But I was that was the first time I'd ever experienced that. I was this is a different kind of mental pressure I'm not used to. And so, I had to get accustomed to that. And okay, well, how do I get better at the mental game in dealing with that kind of adversity, that kind of pressure? I can handle a guy one-on-one. I can handle help side. I can handle coach yelling at me, holding me accountable. But now there's other stuff. And now how do I figure that out? So the basketball journey for me as a player and now as a coach has always been about, how do I creatively problem solve and how do I dig in to be the best version of myself, whatever it's going to be.
So every feasible aspect of the game, whether it's dealing with, the crowd or your coach or other players, you kind of took that into account and worked on it in any way possible.
Yeah, and, I think I did a great job of that in high school. I think I did a poor job of that in college because there's things that I wasn't prepared for in college that I dealt with, and we can get to that. But, I mean, that's been what this journey has been for me. Even as a high school coach, you go into being a high school coach and you think it's, your X's and your O's, and no, it's really the relationships you're developing, and really it's the relationship you're developing with everybody. Parents, administrators, all the sort of ancillary aspects of coaching is almost more important than what I'm diving into in terms of offensive and defensive strategies. I mean, that's important, don't get me wrong, but hacking all those other things is going to be able to make my job easier and better.
So the student section coming out, I mean, that's a pretty wild story. But at the same time, on the flip side of that wall, it's a lot. Was it flattering to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, their chants were really creative, and I'm at the free throw line laughing about it. I'm clearly don't have hair now, and I was losing my hair when I was 15. So the Rogaine chants and all that stuff, you're flattered, but it's something that you realize you're paying attention to, and so I knew that okay, I can't be in a place where I'm acknowledging this. So that happened the first time. I'm laughing, acknowledging it. But if I'm laughing, acknowledging it, I'm paying attention to it. So where do I need to get to so that I don't hear any of that? Because I guarantee, guys like LeBron and Jordan, can't imagine what fans are yelling at them. I promise you they're not hearing it. So, and I was like, how do I get there? And I can't be honest that I got very good at it, but it was another aspect of the game. I was like, well, what book can I read or who can I talk to? Like, how do I get into some kind of zone where I'm tuning that stuff out? But yeah, so like all those things just, you know, and the last thing, so the working out portion of it, I found that the team building part of it, like, that's where I got the most juice, is that whenever I could get guys in the gym to work out with me, like, I was never the kind of guy that just wanted to be in a gym by himself. I mean, if I had to, I would, but like, I was always trying to grab teammates, and I can't say that every teammate was down to run a suicide at 10-pound medicine ball, but like, you know, the experience of building those relationships, putting in that sweat equity, is also something that I loved and enjoyed. Because, you know, basketball, like, I realized I was talking to you, it sounded like this very like me in a vacuum. You know, it's just, I'm only thinking about myself. But like, you know, I'm still friends with a lot of my high school teammates, and it's because of that work we put in. You know, and I just want to make that clear because it sounded a little bit like I was a little selfish for a second.
I mean, it is a podcast. We're talking to you. It is about you. You did accomplish a lot, and I'm asking you about it. And again, all these things and hard work you put in, whether it's with your teammates or by yourself in the gym, it led to you being a D1 player. You go to Princeton. So that transition from, you know, being that guy to being a role player, do you mind expanding on that and how that was like?
Yeah, I was lucky in the sense that, I was unlucky in the sense that the coach that recruited me left before I got there. So I'm walking onto campus playing for a coach that didn't recruit me, never talked to me. You know, he was the coach at Air Force, and Air Force didn't recruit me, so I didn't know this guy from anything. So, but I was lucky in that, you know, there were 2 spots in the starting lineup that were open and available. So I knew that, like, okay, well, if I just do what I'm supposed to do, I could start. And I was lucky in that my high school coach, we played fast. So, you know, the biggest adjustment is always the speed of the game and decision making. And because I had a high school coach that, like, we pressed and we were intense defensively, and he gave me a lot of freedom, that learning curve for me wasn't as steep as I feel like it could have been. And so I did start, not initially, I was first off the bench, but by game 4 or game 5, I'd started, and then started 9 games after that. And I think the biggest, at that point in my career, all I really wanted to do was play. I knew that I had this 4-year journey. I knew that I was playing with, you know, 2 fantastic seniors and a really great junior. Both the seniors played professionally. One's a professional baseball player, played for the Padres. His name is Will Venable. Another guy, Judson Wallace, played like a 10 to 12-year career in Italy. The junior point guard, Scott Greenman's now the associate head coach at American. I mean, I knew that to fit in and to play, I didn't have to have the role I had in high school, and I was okay with that. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is my freshman year, but I'm going to be those guys as a senior, so just wait your turn. So how do I get on the court? Defend, rebound, play hard. Well, I can do all those things thanks to my high school coach that made me do all those things. You know, if I didn't have my high school coach and I was just a scorer, I'm probably not able to acclimate and to change the way I needed to. And then, man, I got hurt. You know, they told me I had a stress fracture in my pubic bone, and then I had to, if you want to get the lights back on, you got to walk. It's a motion sensor. Yeah, they said it's a stress fracture in my pubic bone. I had to sit out 6 months. So I sat out 6 months, didn't do anything, attacked my rehab as hard as I attacked anything else I've done in my life. Came back my sophomore year, and the coach that had, now he has his first recruiting class, guys he brought in. Freshman guard he brought in, is playing ahead of me. I don't care, like I'm cool with it. I'm pushing in practice, and I'm like first guy off the bench playing 16, 17 minutes a game, and about 3 weeks in the season, same injury on the other side of my body, and they don't know what it is. The MRI is unclear, and by the time, so I'm like in and out of practice, barely. I'm like, so because I'm out of practice, I'm not playing games. And pain is like it's a weird pain that I can play through it, but I just don't feel like myself. Didn't know what was going on. Finally get to the end of the year, and they're like, well, we've process of elimination, taken everything out, and you know, we're sorry to say we got your original diagnosis wrong. Wasn't a stress fracture of your pubic bone. You actually had a sports hernia, and because you didn't get the surgery and you rehabbed as hard as you did, it actually made the other side tear. So now you have 2 tears in basically my abdomen that I needed to get surgery for. So, all right, you get surgery, you attack the rehab again. It takes me about takes me about 6 months to get back to like, I can be myself. I mean, I was able to play before that, but like 6 months where like, you know, I'm dunking like I usually am. I'm sprinting like I don't get tired. But 6 months after the surgery, I'm in the middle of my junior year. I haven't played since middle of my freshman year. Yep. And the program's kind of moved on. But end of my junior year, starting to figure it out and kind of feel myself getting back into the groove. And then coach gets fired. So now a new coach comes in. And again, these are, you know, when I talked about the adversity and the way of the hacking of the things, like these were things that I didn't know how to hack. You know, the injuries that are occurring like this and these coaching changes, that threw me through a loop. You know, I don't, looking back on it, there are things I could have done better in the moment. Like, you know, it's hard, man. You're just trying to find your way and get some consistency so that the work you're putting in can show. And, you know, to be fair, like, you know, I worked my butt off before my senior year. I wasn't starting, but I was first off the bench, playing pretty well for the first like 6 or 7 games. Have a really bad game against Rutgers. We go on a losing streak, and we're like 4-15, and then like he just starts playing his younger guys, and like totally makes sense as a coach. I'd have done the same thing. Can't admit that I was handling it well emotionally because like now it's like, wow, my career is over. Like there wasn't a grad year situation thing back then. Like I'm really about to like finish my college basketball career basically not playing. So you're dealing with the mental stress of that. So that was, you know, not to get on a down note, but that was my college basketball experience.
I mean, despite not kind of going all the way like how you wanted, at least on the playing side of things, you still did go to an Ivy League school. You got a great education. Talk about that Ivy League culture that, you know, not from like an elitist standpoint, obviously, because we talked about it a little bit earlier that there's just that culture just makes you want to be the best at what you're doing, and that pushed you. Yeah,
I mean, you know, I'm lucky, right? Because, you know, had I chose to go to, you know, Fullerton or Long Beach State and all these same things happened, right? You know, you don't have that degree, you don't have those kinds of relationships and connections that you make. Not to speak ill of Long Beach State, but like I think we can acknowledge the difference between Long Beach State and Princeton without sounding elitist. And so, you know, I'm hurt and I'm not able to compete at a high level on the court. But when I go back to my dorm room, I go into class, I'm having to be the best version of myself, and I'm meeting brilliant people who they're trying to excel at what they're doing, and I'm feeding off that energy. That's going to keep me going. I'm in class with amazing professors and brilliant people and engaging with ideas and opening up my mind. So, you know, there's never sort of, I mean, obviously college is fun and there's time to relax, but when you're at a place like that, the energy of everyone trying to be great, everyone's trying to be great. You know, it's why like you're not going to find, you know, they're not going to sell out Princeton Arena all the time because people are busy being the first chair on violin, trying to be in the, you know, the orchestra and whatever, you know, city in the world. You know, there's other athletes, there's people starting businesses. I mean, so I had a lot of friends that weren't basketball players and weren't even athletes, but they were just phenomenal people. And those people are working for Google now and they've started nonprofits. I mean, so, you know, that experience and getting to be around that kind of energy, I think if I hadn't been and I had had all those injuries and coaching changes, like that's where you kind of get into like this deep depression and this like, what am I doing with my life? And, you know, where can I find happiness? Where can I find fulfillment? Where can I find that competitive and creative juice? You know, I was able to have that not on the court, and that was the blessing of being able to go to Princeton, even in those, you know, dark, cold winters.
Yeah, I mean, you have all that. And on the court, though, you still do have some special moments, maybe not necessarily from a playing standpoint. But again, when I Google you and I'm trying to, you know, do my research, one of the first things that come up is you playing in the Maui tournament. Someone's recording it, which you said your parents, correct? Yeah. Your parents were recording the screen with a camera or whatever, and they're like, oh, there's Matt Sargeant. And you're playing the Maui tournament against Coach K and Duke. So you have a lot of special moments like that. Do you mind kind of sharing some of those?
Yeah, I mean, when I was able to play, the college basketball experience was wonderful. And even as I was getting to support my teammates, you know, especially my sophomore year where we were winning a good amount of games and everyone was kind of vibing, like that was a great experience. I mean, I think the last game I started in a college basketball game my freshman year was at Duke on ESPN. JJ Redick was a senior. Daniel Ewing was on the team. Sheldon Williams. I mean, you know, those are you're growing up, you know, putting in that sweat equity in the gym as an 8, 9-year-old. You're going through these middle school, high school experiences, and while you're doing that, you're watching these games on TV. You're thinking, oh, I'm working to get there. I'm working to get there. So, you know, when you're there, it's like, oh, like you kind of made it. You want to play well, but it's like, okay, like I'm in it now. And this is, all my hard work put me here. That game I had my career high in rebounds. I missed every shot it took. That happened. But I had 6 rebounds. And then the Maui Invitational was like the preeminent, preseason tournament, and again, we didn't win any of those games. We were in a couple of them, but our first game we played Duke, and I missed all my shots the first time I played them, and I made all my shots the next time. I was 4 for 4 from the field, 9 points. We got killed in the first 6 minutes. We got down 16, 18, and then basically played them even the rest of the game. And as a competitor, that was some of the most fun I had because those were the highest level games. I'm playing against guys that are NBA players, and just what it brings out of you in terms of how hard you have to play and how focused you have to be and how in the moment you have to be. I don't really have any memories of those games because you're so focused and you're in such a flow that you're just in it, and then once the game is over, it's almost like you're in some hallucinatory experience where it's oh my god, oh, that happened, and where was I? I was in it.
So it's one of those moments, kind of you're there, it, but it's one of those things the experience doesn't really hit you until after the fact.
Yeah, I've watched it on film a few times, and so post game, you were so focused and so into what was going on that I don't have a visceral, actual hard-coded memory of actually playing it. I was so in the zone because you have to be. If you're not, you get
benched.
You get brutalized on the court. My second game of my college career was at the Carrier Dome against Syracuse when they had Jerry McNamara, Raheem Warwick. I got to play, be around a lot of great players. I got to be and learn from, 2 really good coaches who are actually coaching together now back at Air Force, and learn a lot from them. Not just X&O standpoint, but sort of best and worst ways to manage personalities, manage players. You play Division I college basketball, you're experiencing basketball at the elite level. I was lucky for that.
Yeah, and it's an awesome experience, but then you're done. Basketball's done. It's over. You do a startup for a few years, and you get the itch back for basketball. Talk about that whole story because it's interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, so I was offered a tryout to go play in Israel, and I flirted with the idea and just the thought of I was a little scarred, right? You can kind of think basketball was my first love. I'm in this long-term relationship with her, and she just brutal, just beats me up at the end of our relationship. And so the thought of getting into another relationship halfway around the world with no support system, I was I don't know if I can do it. So this was 2008. So I don't know who watches this, but in 2008, the economy and the jobs, even coming out of Princeton, were minimal to say the least. So I was super blessed. My cousin was starting a company, creating the first real sports app for an iPhone. And the App Store was brand new at that point. iPhone had really been released in 2007. This is 2008. There's now a full-blown App Store. So he goes, hey, why don't you come help me, produce content for the app, produce the app, and write content for it. Happy to do it. So that's 9 months. In that 9 months, we release it. It gets 1 million downloads, does really, really well. But it's free. We're not making any money off of it. This company called Buzz Time sees what my cousin was able to do, make the app, and go, hey, we want you to head up our technology division, build us an app. And then they hired me to produce content, write content. And so that for the next 3 years, it was funny. I was living kind of the dream. I was 24 years old, and basically my job was to work from home and write somewhere between 50 to 60 trivia questions a day.
Oh my God.
And edit 3 or 4 other trivia games that this company was producing. And I was making I'm not going to say how much I was making. I was making good money. Okay. Enough that I could I was paying all my bills. And that work took me 2 or 3 hours a day. So I got to kind of get into some other things. I got into running, and I got into meditation. I read 100 books in a year. I just kind of tried to sort of branch myself out, and basketball was nowhere to be found. I didn't touch a ball for basically 3 years. Just nothing. I just, dove into the work I was doing, got really good at that. After 6 or 8 months at the job, I think someone realized that I had a Princeton degree, and they had me writing trivia. They're we could have him do more than what he's doing. So within 2 years, I was by 2009, 10, 11, I was running their social media advertising department, and that was brand new. So Facebook had just started doing ads that year. So I had no one to mentor me or tell me how to do this. I just kind of had to make it up. And so same thing I could do in basketball, you just do a deep dive and you just start to figure out, you're just writing all these lines of copy and you're just hacking away at doing A and B testing and figuring out what the best CPC rates are, and like you're just hacking away at it. And then I get like 6 to 7 months into that job, and I'm sitting in this cube, and again, I'm making good money, and I'm just like, is this really what I want to be doing? Like, who am I serving? Like, who am I helping? I'm trying to get people to like, want to play trivia at bars, and like, there's fun in that, and that's good work, but like, this is not it. So I was still living in Huntington Beach at that time, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to drive over to my high school. I'm going to go to my high school gym, because the cool thing about high school gym at that point was that it was always open. My high school coach lived there, so I knew it was going to be open. So I walk in there, high school coach is there, of course, start chopping up with him, and there's a guy training people on one of the courts. So I just walk over to him, a guy named Nigel Carter, and I say, hey man, like, you don't need to pay me anything. I have this full-time job, and I got a 140-mile commute every single day, so I don't know how much I'll be here, but are you cool if I am here, just kind of helping you out? Yeah, sure, go ahead. So doing that for a few months, and it's fun, enjoying it, and I show up one night, and he's got this guy doing a ball handling clinic. I'm watching the ball handling clinic, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, and I'm looking at the guy, and he looks like he's homeless. He's got like big, thick beard and curly hair, and he's like big and strong, almost looks like a hockey player, but he's really good at ball handling. I'm like, this is a practical joke. What's going on here? So this guy's named Shay Frazee, start talking to him, tells me a little bit about his background, and I don't know what it kind of got into me, but I was like, hey man, like, want to play one-on-one? And remember, I hadn't played in 3 years. So yeah, man. So started playing, and he proceeds to just beat it was bad. Like, he just destroys me. And I hadn't played one-on-one my whole life, and I'd never been beaten like that. And like, that kind of got me like, oh, okay, that kind of clicked. Like, I want to get back into basketball. That competitive thing, like, I want to get back into it. I want to play. A
loss made you want to get back into
basketball. Yeah, he was good. I was like, I want to get to know you. You're going to be my best friend, and we're going to be in the gym together, and like, I'm going to play again soon. I'm going to beat you. Like, it just kind of like got me back into it. Found out that he was working at American Sports Center for this company called Open Gym. It wasn't that big at the time. And he was working out college players, NBA players, a bunch of modern day players. And so I was like, hey man, can I help you out? And so I kind of switched, can I help you out? Like, yeah. And he just lived in the gym. So at that point, once I'd met Shay, I knew that like, okay, basketball is going to be it. So I go to buzz time, give my 2 weeks notice. And again, like, I don't have a job I'm going to. I just know like, I just want to get back into basketball. I was lucky enough that I didn't have to worry about finances necessarily. So I'm just going to figure it out. So started working with Shay, and he was doing these clinics, and so it's like a couple weeks we're doing these clinics, and there is a 13-year-old girl there who's just really good. I mean, all the ball handling, she can shoot, and talking to her mom, and mom takes a liking to me, and she says, hey, my daughter's going to go be a freshman this coming fall at this was in, I think we're in May. Yeah, I think May or June. This coming fall, she's going to be at Los Alamitos. We don't have a coach, and they're looking for a coach. Would you be interested in applying? Like, man, I have no resume as a coach, no experience. Mm-hmm. She's like, no, I think you should apply. So I apply, and I get the job. And so we do a full summer with the girls' team. She's the best player on the team by far. We got some couple of good seniors, but mostly I'm just kind of like enjoying getting to coach. I have all these ideas about coaching because of all these books that I've been reading the last 3 years, and all my experience as a player, so all these ideas. And we are done with the summer, had a good summer, and I'm back in the gym with Shade American Sports Center all of August, and we're just training and playing and training and playing. I'm basically like a Peter Pan lost boy. I'm just back to being a kid again, where all I'm doing is just in the gym. And I get a call from a number I don't recognize, and the guy's like, hey, you met Sargeant? Yeah. You're the head coach of Los Alamitos? My daughter's going to go there. She's going to be a freshman. I was like, okay. She's like, she's really good. She's going to start for you. And I was like, okay. This is my first parent phone call. We're like, they're. But even in that moment, I was like, okay, maybe. He's like, all right, well, we're done with the summer. It's like, that's okay. Like, You got a gym? I was like, yeah, I just train in American Sports Center. He's like, come on, you'll train. Okay, so what do I have to lose? And next day, this girl walks in. She's like 6 feet tall, long arms.
What is it, 13, 14-year-old?
Yeah.
Wow.
6 feet tall, long arms. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe she's growing in her body, and I don't know if she's going to be good, but she's definitely like tall and has the build. And I couldn't work with anyone because it's a dead period. So I had Shay, trainer, and I just like was watching. And she's doing all the ball handling. She's grabbing the rim. She's making shots. It's like, God. So it's like, well, sir, you're right. You may be the last parent to be right about their child for all I know. And, you know, welcome. And so her name is Naya Odom. She's in the WNBA right now. And so I was blessed. The point of the story is I was blessed at my first coaching job that I ever had. I had 2 freshmen. One ended up being a WNBA player. The other one ended up being a Division I player. So that was my lucky foray into being a high school basketball coach.
All right, and then right after that, it's a quick transition. You go from being the women's basketball coach at Los Alamitos, and then the next step is the men's coach at Oakwood, correct?
Yeah, so Los Alamitos had no program before I got there, and it was a success. So we win the first league title, and we make it to the quarterfinals. We have, a bunch of success. And I'm actually content to stay there. I loved coaching those girls. I enjoyed it. They're phenomenal people. They work really hard. They never complain. I had a girl dislocate her finger in practice and try and tape it and play that practice. I mean, just like another level stuff. So I was having a great time. I was training nearby athletes, and so I was actually my first year I coached the varsity and the freshman girls. I coached both. So I was coaching the freshman girls. Like we had practice like 5:30 in the morning, and I would go like do all the training at American Sports Center, and I'd come back for afternoon practice. And like I was in heaven. But I get to the end of the year, and I reached out to a couple of my friends, not friends, but we'll call them friends, that were ADs, and just out of curiosity, I was like, hey, what's the transition like from being a girls basketball coach to boys basketball coach? Because I was enjoying coaching girls, but I think at some point I wanted to have the opportunity to coach boys. And I had 2 ADs tell me, to be honest with you, you got about maybe 1 year left, and you'll be labeled a girls coach, and you're not going to
get boxed in.
Yeah, and that's so silly and so dumb. But yeah, at the time there was Brea Linda was like the top tier girls program. They'd won national titles, and the AD used that coach as an example. Like that guy's won national titles as a girls coach, and the only boys job he would get is the Brea Linda boys job. It's like, okay, well, I don't know how many national titles I'm going to win, and even if I do, it doesn't matter. So I hear this news, and this is the hardest decision I ever had to make. I hear this news in July, and I need to find a job. I'm looking for a boys job, and Oakwood was the only school that was looking for a coach that late in the game. They had a situation with the coach they had, and so they let him go late. And so I didn't get that job until September of the fall. So I had to let those girls know while school was in session that I wasn't going to be their coach. So it was by far the hardest conversation. It bothers me to this day that it happened that way. Because I loved those girls, but I wanted the opportunity to coach boys. So Oakwood, had a NBA player go through there in the late 80s and had a lot of success. And then basically after that, they didn't win league titles since then. So it was when I got there in 2013, it was league title, CIF championship 1988, and just blank on the wall. Mm-hmm. But I was extremely lucky that, again, I had a freshman point guard who was a phenomenal player and a phenomenal person. And he bought into helping me change the culture of I know Oakwood's a liberal arts school, or they care more about arts and athletics, and but you guys are going to show up for 6:30 practice, 6:30 a.m. practice, and he was there, so they were all there. And we built that program together. He scored 2,000 points in his career. We won 2 league championships together. We made it to the quarterfinals twice, and he. Again, as a coach, you're always blessed to have not just great players, but to start with them. So I started with, and that's the point, starting with freshmen all the way through, and we could build it together. So, that was my Oakwood experience. But as I was at Oakwood, it was an art school. They weren't really in on sports all the way. So basically, the way the story goes is I'm teaching while I'm there. So teaching wellness and PE. I'm an advisor, and I run an immersion course. And they have a really cool program there called Immersion, where for 2 weeks in the middle of the school year, classes, everything stops. Sports stops, classes stops, and then teachers can design these courses for kids to get immersed in. And it can be anything from the biology teacher does a sailing course like in St. Bart's or something. Yeah. There's like a language course that they go to Spain. So immersion had always been in the spring. It never affected me. In my last year there, they're like, oh no, we're going to put immersion in December. So now I've got finals, immersion, and winter break all in a line. And I was like, oh man, I can't, I mean, building a real high level program with just everything having to stop in the middle of December, that's a lot. So I got to wait. In the first year, I did a basketball immersion where we went to the Bahamas and played in a tournament. But I don't want to rob my players of always having to do the basketball immersion. Like, it's a wonderful program. I want all my players to be able to try other things. Exactly. You know, they're not all Division I basketball players. These are just good kids that love basketball. So at that point, I was like, I got to find a situation where they're more into sports, where I can really build something to be the highest level of high school basketball that exists. And super lucky, I was still training kids. One of the kids I was training was, at the time, a sophomore at Notre Dame. The parents let me know that the coach was going to go find new opportunities. So I applied.
And then the very next thing, Notre Dame. So you said, I remember you talking about it. You came to Notre Dame. They were all in on sports except basketball. Basketball was an afterthought.
So that's what they told me. Like, that was the narrative.
That was the narrative.
So like, when I was coming in here, the narrative that I was told is like, this is a football and baseball school, and they don't really support basketball. And I was like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if if I'm able to build a program and attract quality kids and quality families, and we win games that they're just not going to care that we're playing well. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, so I didn't really hear that, but that was the narrative. I was told those things, and I think it's unfair to Notre Dame, right? Because I mean, if you can just look back to even just 10 years ago when they didn't win, or 11 years ago, they didn't win one league game. But if you look at the stands, packed.
Really? Okay.
Packed. Not winning a league game, but it's packed. Now, so there was definitely support. Did they care more about football winning, baseball winning? I don't know. I wasn't here for that. All I can tell you is when I got here, I had a full support, and I was able to do all the things that I wanted to do that maybe I couldn't have done in Oakwood. And I haven't had any barriers. But most important thing was, have to have players that buy in, and families, more importantly, families that buy in, because I don't care how good of a coach you are, you can't outcoach the home. So that was the big task, is trying to create a program that was going to be enticing to families and players that wanted to build it with me.
Before we talk about this current season here at Notre Dame, I want to talk about, you talk about how you've coached a WNBA player. Yeah. You've also coached an NBA player. You get here, Zaire Williams, correct? Yep. Talk about that experience coaching with him.
Naya and Zaire were very, very, very similar in their build, in their personality and temperament. They were very similar. She was, as a freshman, obviously a little more emotionally mature than he was. I mean, he was, one of the impressive things about him was how mature, humble, and intelligent he was. Not to say she wasn't those things, but just I got him a little bit older. So I pushed Nay pretty hard. Because I had a really solid relationship with her, and I felt comfortable that I could push her. I don't think I pushed Zaire as much as I could have. And it was difficult because, he'd score 39 points in a game. So it's I was new to sort of coaching an elite player like that, where they're able to affect the game, but it's up to me to still get more out of them. I think I was too content just to let him.
So how to critique a 39-point game, essentially. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, it's tough, and in practice, he's so far and away better than everybody else that he can be really effective, but it's not, is it his best effort? I don't know, probably not, right? But it's hard, but I didn't know how to coach that. But he was getting to watch him play in big games. I mean, man, he was so good, but I think he taught me a lot about how to be a better coach for elite players. I hadn't really, Matt Martinez at Oakwood was a 2,000-point scorer. That's Division V. That's not the same, Naya was a WNBA player, but I only had her 1 year. Getting to experience Zaire for that time let me know, okay, I'm going to get more players of his talent and caliber. I need to learn how to coach those players better. And listen, like he's having a fantastic career. He's doing phenomenally in the NBA. So clearly, like it worked out fine for him. But that was my big lesson from him is, how do I acknowledge what the success that's happening, but also do more to push them. And a lot goes into that. It's building personal relationships with them. It's personal relationships with their parents. It's making the other players on the team know that like you're going to hold them accountable more than everybody else, even if they're playing that well. Like you're still going to get on them. So all those lessons I had to learn in my young coaching career, and I think it's paid dividends since then. But yeah, but not just Zaire, but Zaire had a teammate, Julian Rishwain. That was the kid that I had been training who told me about the job. And so, he was a 20-point per game scorer, and I think he was at one point leading Division I college basketball this year in 3-point percentage. And like he's going to have like a phenomenal pro career. I think he might be a fringe NBA guy. So I mean, I was hard on Julian because I had known him as someone that was his trainer.
Exactly.
So I was able to like be hard on him in a way that I didn't really know how to be hard because I didn't have a relationship. I didn't know how to go there. So that was a task for me as a coach to figure out like, okay, how do I find that fair balance for every player on the team where I'm pushing everybody, but knowing that like some players, whether it's their talent or their size, are going to require a little more attention. Even if they're playing well, I still need to be on it. And Zaire and Julian both helped me learn that.
And now you're on it today with both Dusty and Ben. Let's expand on some of those relationships. I know Ben being the point guard, you guys have kind of a bond. You push him harder. So talk about that if you don't mind.
Yeah. So when I came in, it was Julian's junior year, it was Zaire's sophomore year. So I'm not coming into this building with them. My first class of kids that came in to play for me, and they knew they're playing for me, was Ben's class. And so I feel like the process of building this culture, I've been building it with Ben and his class, Kendall and Luca, and that whole senior class is we've been doing it together. But Ben's been the one on varsity for all 4 of those years. And so, I let him know when I first met him as an 8th grader. I asked him what his goals were, and he said, be a Division I player, I want to be an NBA player. And I said, okay, like I've learned my lesson, and I'm letting you know, like I'm going to coach you through the lens of what does the NBA player version of you do. And it doesn't matter if you score 25 points in a game. If you don't play like the NBA player, I'm on you. And that's the lens that we're using. And I'm going to coach you harder than I've coached anyone ever. And I have. And, he didn't, just definitely knows where he didn't like it. And, and that's perfectly okay. I get that. But that, both him and Dusty, and again, temperamentally they're different people, so you get on them in different ways, you hold them accountable in different ways, but I've held true to those lessons I learned from Zaire and Julian with those guys. And at the same time, guys like Kendall, who, played JV as a freshman, but now is going to be a Division I player. Guys like, Luca Rishwain, who, played JV as a freshman, and I think he will get a walk-on spot at whatever Division I school he decides to go to because he's that good of a player. Mm-hmm. I'm hard on those guys just the same way. Like there is no player on the team that I don't care about their development, and I don't want them to get better. And obviously, the more room there's to grow, the more I'm going to be involved in helping you get there. But that's been the lesson that everyone watches me coach Ben really hard. So when I'm coaching them hard, it's like, well, if he's coaching that guy super hard and he's averaging 20 points per game or whatever it is, like I have to be able to take it too. And Ben, that I love that kid like he's my son. I mean, I really do. And we've been through a lot together, and the kind of trust that I have with him, the kind of even the frustration I still feel, like it comes from a place of undying love, unconditional love. And, I feel that with every single one of my players. And I care about every single one of my players. But Ben and I really have been on this 4-year journey together. And we talked about it with his parents from the start, like this is going to be a 4-year journey. And he could have transferred multiple times, and he didn't. And that's a testament to him. Most kids in this day and age do. And so that, I feel a kinship and a bond. Same with Dusty. Dusty could have transferred. He didn't. He stayed. And I think a lot has to do with that they trust that I have their best interest at heart, and I want to help them develop.
And again, with that approach and all the work you guys have done for the first time, like we mentioned at the top, first time history in the open division, the pool play. What did that mean to you when you guys made that, you know, it was announced you guys were going to be a part of those 8 teams?
Well, the first goal for this team was to win a league championship, because we hadn't won a league championship since 2001. And that's before basically everybody on my team was born.
Jesus.
So that was the first, and we knew that because of how good Harvard Westlake was as a program and how good St. Francis was as a program. There's 2 phenomenal programs this year. And even Loyola had a phenomenal year. We knew that we win our league, we're probably going to make the Open. So it was one of those like means ends goals type of thing. Yep. So all we talked about all summer was, UMLC, undefeated Mission League champions. UMLC, undefeated Mission League champions. And so we didn't accomplish the first letter of that. We weren't undefeated, but we were Mission League champions. And so we felt confident that we'd get the next goal, which was make the Open. And so when it was announced and we were the 7th seed, I mean, you're beyond ecstatic because, again, put in all this work on the gym, on the track, you do these team building things just to have the opportunity to see if you can be at your best when your best is needed at the highest level. That's, when all the pressure is there, and because that's when you learn about yourself. And high school sports fundamentally should be about learning who you are. And that's going to help you throughout the course of your life. Not just as a basketball player, but as a person. Like, who am I really? And how do you know who you are unless you are putting yourself to the highest degree of difficulty? If I'm a video game player and I beat the first level, I don't keep playing the first level over and over again. Like, I'm trying to get all the way to the top to know how good am I really. And so this group of seniors, starting from their sophomore year when they really kind of took overhaul the program, like that was what they talked about. They wanted to get Mission League championship, Open, and compete for a state title. So to accomplish those goals was phenomenal. Now, as you mentioned, pool play, we struggled, and we had a team meeting after our 3rd loss to Mater Dei, and one of the things that's great about being a coach at a place like Notre Dame is the kids are they're bright, intelligent, they're intuitive, and so we sort of talked about where are we at, what's going on. A lot of the boys sort of admitted of like, Coach, we set these goals and we kind of had this feeling of like, we're here, we got here. And there wasn't like, there's sort of a little bit of an emotional early relaxation or letdown. The goal wasn't win Open Division, it was get Open Division. And we felt that, and I was like, man, that's on me. Yep, yeah, I hear you. I got that. And so, we've obviously changed it now that we're in the state tournament, which is obviously like, trying to win state championship. But like for them to acknowledge that there was sort of that vibe where we were too much in the happy to be here versus the we're winning this. I think, again, lesson learned. When you're doing something that's never been done before, you don't quite know what it feels like when you're doing it. That's one of those things. That's why the programs like Corona Centennial and Harvard Westlake, who are doing it year after year after year, like they have those things built in. And I'm still building the program. And these are fantastic lessons to learn. And the boys responded the way they should have last night with a almost 30-point win. So I mean, that's what you want to see. You want to see that kind of resilience. You want to see that ability to acknowledge how, not just that you failed, but how you failed, and then know who you are in a situation to then make the change. So far, we're doing that.
Yeah, so far you did it, 25-point win, bounce back for sure. And it's kind of want to get into the outlook of, well, I guess it's one game at a time.
Yeah.
So next up, you guys got San Marcos, correct? No, that's who you beat last night. Yep. San Anthony next, right? So preview that game and then kind of just like the outlook for that.
This is the fun part about the season. Everyone's good. I've told everyone out is like, what's the scouting report? It's like, hey, listen, man, every team that we're going to play is really good. Every team that we play has got really good players. And we have to have the mindset that, like, if we play our best, we can beat anybody. And so now it's like, how do we get ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually to be at that place together so that we're at our best? Because we weren't for those 3 pool games. It was clear. It wasn't that they weren't playing hard, but there was another level that we had to get to that we didn't know what that level was. And now we have a sense of, okay, we know where that level is. Now we need to work to get there. Practices need to be a little different. Our detail needs to be different. The way we support and love one another needs to be different. The way we do our gratitude at the end of practices, that needs to be different. We have to change with the level of intensity that the season is requiring of us. So St. Anthony's very, very good. They've beaten some good teams. They almost beat Harvard Westlake at Harvard Westlake. That was a very close game. And so, we are going to have to come out and play really well. But we for sure know what that looks like for us. And I feel confident we'll do it.
All right. Well, Coach Sargeant and Notre Dame tomorrow night, their playoff game. And we want to just wish you best of luck with tomorrow night and the rest of the title run. And we want to thank you for coming on today.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Cannon Sports, TikTok at Cannon Sports Official, and of course, cannonsports.com for all your sporting goods needs. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.